It is really nice to be back with all of you. It's been a while. And one of the things that I remember most about this parish is that you are above average singers. And the last time I was here, we sang a song together, and we're going to do it again because I want to see if you have been practicing. And we're going to have some fun with this. And I'm going to come a little closer to you because y'all are way far away. And I think we all know the song "My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean." Well, we're going to do it like we do a king. So let's sing it through one time, all together, just to make sure we know the words. Is that good? You ready? Okay, so here we go. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the sea. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. That was very good. Now this time, we're going to have some fun again. Sort of like, you need to have your right arm like this. And on every word that begins with the letter B, we're going to change direction. You can do this. I remember how good y'all did this before. So here we go. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the sea. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me, Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. That was good. And now one more verse. Left arms. We're going to change positions with the words of the hymn. And we're going to stick with the right arms and the knees. Again, you all are above average in every way, so I know you can do this. So here we go. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the sea. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me, Bring back, oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. Good job. Good job. You know, that's usually how we begin a lot of things at camp. With a lot of music and a lot of joy. And, you know, after opening with a joyful, goofy camp song, it just helps people relax and smile. And it's not because we're trying to be silly for the sake of being silly. It's because joy matters in our faith community, to have joy and laughter and goofiness. And Psalm 95 says, "O come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation." Not a perfect noise, not a quiet noise, but a joyful noise. And camp is full of joyful noise. Songs around the campfire, kids laughing too hard sometimes at ridiculousness, voices singing a little off key. And over the years, I've noticed something. Joy opens hearts. When young people feel safe enough to laugh, when they know they belong, their hearts open. And when hearts open, living water starts to flow. Which makes today's gospel story feel very familiar. In the Gospel of John, Jesus is sitting beside a well, It's noon. He's tired. It is an ordinary moment. And a woman comes to draw water. She's not there looking for a spiritual breakthrough. She's just looking for water. But Jesus meets her there, not in a temple, not in a sanctuary, but at a well. And he says to her, if you knew the gift of God, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Living water. Water that fills more than a jar. Water that fills a life. And then something remarkable happens. This woman, who came quietly carrying her water jar, leaves it behind. And she runs back to her town and she says, come and see. She becomes the invitation. She becomes the movement. She becomes the church in motion. And whenever I read that story, I can't help but to think about camp. Because camp is a well. Young people don't arrive perfectly formed. They arrive thirsty. Thirsty for belonging, thirsty for courage, thirsty for a place where they can breathe and not feel constantly measured or compared. And something happens when they step into that space. They wake up in a cabin and they walk into the woods. They hear the birds even before they hear a text notification. They stand beside the stream or under the open sky and notice creation in a new way. And the psalm reminds us, in God's hands are the depths of the earth. The heights of the mountains are his also. At camp, young people experience that truth with their bodies. They climb something they didn't think that they could climb. They try something that stretches them. They sit under a sky full of stars, and they are reminded that God's creation is so much bigger than all of their worries. Sometimes living water shows up in moments of courage. Imagine a camper sort of stalled on the climbing tower, terrified. Have you ever been on a rock wall or a climbing tower? The whole group, all of their friends are cheering them on, and the counselor says something, you don't have to go any higher. Just take it easy, but maybe try one more step. And then one step becomes two, and two steps becomes three. And then when that camper comes down, they all celebrate that together. This isn't just recreation. This is formation. Sometimes living water appears in quieter ways. Late at night in a cabin, when the lights are off and someone finally asks the question they've been holding in all week, do you ever wonder if God actually hears us? And the counselor says, honestly, yeah, I've wondered that too. And then they have a real conversation about faith. And suddenly faith becomes real. And sometimes living water begins in the most fragile moments. That first night at camp. And every summer there's a moment like this. A camper sits on their bunk bed after the parents have driven away. The excitement of that initial arrival fades away, and suddenly the quiet hits. And sometimes the tears come, homesickness. A counselor sits down next to them, and they talk. And the counselor just affirms their feelings. Maybe they pray. Maybe they just sit quietly for a while. And then the next morning, something shifts. They join a game, they laugh at something silly, they make a friend, and they end the week. And at the end of the week, that same camper is standing with their arm around someone else saying, "You'll be okay. I felt that way too." That is living water beginning to flow. And sometimes we see the results when kids go home. A mom wrote me this letter that I want to share with you. I've changed a couple of the names, because that's what we're supposed to do. So she says, okay, Anthony, so Emma went to camp questioning her faith. In fact, she's been questioning her faith all year. I even overheard her talking with her friends, and she jokingly said, "I'm going away to Jesus camp." Well, fast forward to her return home the following week. She couldn't wait to tell us about everything, about the schedule and everything else that they did, the devotions, the worship services, the songs. She has been blasting the songs on her cell phone all week. And in fact, this Saturday, I woke up to a Bible verse written on our chalkboard. John, however, was spelled incorrectly. She loved going to the soup kitchen and loved the leadership activities and everything else they did. I am so happy and grateful for what Crossroads gives her. It works. She said the food was really good, and that it always is, and she can't wait to participate in the leadership program again next summer. Well, on a side note, she said the bathrooms were disgusting, but final grade, A+. Thank you. That's it. That's the Holy Spirit at work. It's not perfection. It's a young person arrived questioning her faith and went home singing. And every time I read that line about the bathroom, I laugh and other people laugh. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. But here's the really beautiful part. Because of people like all of you and congregations in the Synod, that shower house was completely gutted and renovated last year. And we are so thrilled that it's been rebuilt. And here's the next beautiful part. We're renovating the Evergreen shower house this year because of further generosity of our donors. So I am walking around everywhere thanking everyone for all of the support that they are giving to camp. And it's not because bathrooms are the point, but it's because places of formation matter. When we care for those spaces, we are strengthening the well. We're making sure that the next young person who arrives with questions, the next camper who shows up nervous on the first night, the next kid who will go home singing camp songs and writing Bible verses on the wall, has a place where living water can flow. Another parent wrote to me that their kids felt comfortable, supported, and cared for by everyone. They loved the balance of activity and rest. They loved that there were no electronics. They loved that faith was woven through the entire day. And one kid even said, "Camp is getting me to love Bible study." Now, if you've ever tried to convince a middle schooler to love Bible study, you realize that's a small miracle. But it happens because faith is lived, not just taught. Camp becomes a place where young people discover the church in a new way. Not a better way, but another way that we are church together. Church is community, and church is people learning to care for one another and to pray for one another and to grow in faith together. And at camp, and camp is that same life of the church lived in an immersive way. For a week or two, young people live outside that community, inside that community all day long. They eat together, play together, serve together, pray together. They see faith modeled by counselors and young adults who are just a few years older than they are. Those near-peer leaders who remember exactly what it feels like to be their age, and they can also show them in a different way than I can how joyful faith can be. So camp's not a replacement for church. It's the church in a different location, a place where young people can experience what Christian community feels like when you live inside it together. And Good Shepherd has been an important part of that story for many years. Some of you have helped build the well. Some of you sent your children there. Some of you prayed for the staff and for the ministry. And like many relationships in the church, the pandemic shifted some of the rhythms. Things got quieter. We didn't see each other as often. But the well is still there. Still full of laughter, still full of questions, still full of living water. And new young people are arriving every summer carrying their own questions, their own hopes, their own thirst. The woman at the well ran back to her town and said, "Come and see." She didn't have a perfect speech. She simply told people where she found living water, and people came. That's still how the church moves. Not through pressure, not through perfect programs, but through people who have seen something real and say, "Come and see." And by God's grace, we get to keep tending that well together. We get to keep making the joyful noises. We get to keep helping young people discover that they belong to God, that their questions matter, and that there is living water for them too. And maybe someday, one of those young people will turn around and say to someone else, "Come and see." Amen.